I want to take you on a mental trip. Today, I want to talk about a very boring subject: development. Now, I know everyone talks about how Africa is underdeveloped, and many of us wonder, why are we so poor? Why is the country so underdeveloped? And why are other countries so developed? And many people have many theories. People say education, they say lack of capital, they say lack of resources. Many argue government corruption. Many people may say many things about development and why Kenya is underdeveloped. Now, I just wanted to take you on a mental trip to try and explain my own take on why a country like Kenya is severely underdeveloped. Now, think of it from this point of view. What if we were to take everyone in Kenya and take them to Japan and bring everyone from Japan into Kenya, assuming that Japan and Kenya have the same number of people? Now, I know they don't have the same number of people, but just, this is just a mental trip. Now, once you take the Kenyans to Japan, let them inherit everything as is. All the cars, all the buildings, everything in Japan, let them have it. And then bring the Japanese and give them everything in Kenya as is. And then step back and observe these two societies after 10 years. Come back after 10 years and look to see what happened. What do you think happened? We all have our guesses, but I'm pretty sure that we have an idea of what happened. We know that once we go to Japan, that has been given to Kenyans after 10 years, we'll find a failed society. We'll find a failed country. We'll find that the streets are not getting repaired. We'll find rampant unemployment, incredible poverty, huge ghetto-like areas, and a miserable people. The political class will be very corrupt, very inept, incredibly selfish, totally lacking in any kind of patriotism. That's what we'll find. And now, if you examine Kenya with the Japanese after 10 years, what do you think you're going to find? Well, you'll find almost immediately, you'll find after 10 years, you'll find high employment, very low corruption. The economy will be a fully first world economy, and the living standards are going to be very high. How do we know this? Well, we know that societies recreate their dysfunctions wherever they go. If you take enough people from one society, as is, take them to another society, they will recreate their dysfunctions, or the lack of dysfunctions, for that matter. Now, we know that for the Kenyans who will inherit Japan, they will recreate the dysfunctions that exist in Kenya. They will simply reproduce Kenya again in a new environment. So we know that all the car factories will be shut down in Japan. Why? Because Kenyans don't make cars. Their attitude will be, we do not want to make any cars. We want to import cars. And so all the car manufacturing companies in Japan that Kenyans have inherited will be immediately shut down, and Kenyans will go back to importing cars. And so by just shutting down the factories, they will lose millions of jobs, and that will have a multiplier effect, a negative multiplier effect on the rest of the economy. And so you'll see unemployment going up, and then you'll see poverty levels going up, and then you'll see whole neighborhoods, whole sections of the city becoming more and more slum-like or ghetto-like. And in the case of the Japanese in Kenya, one of the things that they'll do is they will start to manufacture cars immediately. They will start to manufacture electronics. They'll start to manufacture all the things that they make right now. They will continue making it in a new environment. They will not stop. Every single thing that they make in their country, they will begin to make in Kenya. So that over time, the Kenya that they've inherited will look more and more like the Japan that they knew. And you will see high employment, very high living standards, typical first world conditions. And for the Kenyans, they will recreate their poverty. So that when you look at these two societies, you immediately begin to understand that the wealth and poverty of nations has very little to do with the resources available within that nation. It's the people who determine which nation succeeds and which nation doesn't succeed. So for the Japanese, because people say they have a very insular culture, that insularity is the reason why they'll become rich. Because they do not want you to make anything for them. They want to make everything for themselves. And consequently, they make a lot of things. Which means their living standards go high, their income is very high. For Kenyans, on the other hand, are not an insular culture. Whatever can be termed as Kenyan culture is really a culture of absorbing every single thing that foreigners do. So you see Kenyans chasing a million things. Anything that they see foreigners doing, they want to do. But they only absorb those things that are not helpful. They will never pick up American industriousness and inventiveness and innovation. No. But they will pick up the dirtiest American music. You see? So Kenyans always select to pick up aspects of foreign culture that are the most destructive towards them and nothing else. So what is the psychology? And I'm always interested in the psychology of unsuccessful third world countries. You know, of the people, the mind of the people. What is it about the people that makes them behave like that? So for example, you remember that Japan was bombed by America. It was really damaged. In fact, nuclear bombs were used on Japan and destroying entire cities. Even just regular bombs destroyed entire cities. By the time that war was done, Japan had been bombed back to a third world country. Almost everything was lost. But within 20 years, they had bounced back. So what lessons can we learn from that? Well, there are various lessons. And you know, they were militarily occupied. And they're still occupied by the United States military. They're still under occupation. So what did they do that was different? It's so obvious. First of all, they refused to learn English. Even under military occupation, they refused to absorb American culture, except for baseball. They refused to buy American cars. They refused to buy American music. They refused to buy American clothes. They practically refused almost everything that Americans had. And they insisted upon making their own cars, making their own music, making their own everything, consumer electronics, everything. And so, after the war ended, Japan went back to itself. They never changed despite the damage that had been done to their country. And because that was their attitude, they immediately began to grow rich. Just off of being themselves, rejecting everything that is foreign. So the Japan reverted back to its culture. And that is something that is called cultural intelligence. There are very many types of intelligences. That is just cultural intelligence, whereby you know who you are, you know where you're coming from, and you know where you're going. And you're so proud of yourself that you insist upon doing things for yourself. Now, in the case of Kenya, because Kenyans are not proud of themselves, don't know where they're coming from, and don't know where they're going, and there's no unified Kenyan culture as it were. So basically what has emerged to be culture is a culture of mimicking foreigners. Anything that the foreigner does, the Kenyan wants to do it, but not in a helpful, positive way. And so cultures that have a very high cultural IQ or cultural intelligence seem to display the qualities for success, because they seem to desire to be as independent as possible. And cultures or societies with a very low cultural IQ appear to desire to be dependent upon others. Like they appear to be allergic to total independence. So they appear to want to look at what others are doing and then copy. And for some reason, they appear not to want to copy the healthy aspects of other societies. They appear to want to copy the cultural products of other societies that may be very destructive and irrelevant to themselves. So the psychology of third world countries or third world populations like Kenya is something that can be reduced to the national intelligence level. How intelligent are we as a people? You know, how intelligent is it to have a Kenya Pizza Week celebrating pizza, but not have a Kenyan Ugali Week celebrating Ugali? Are you seeing the difference? And so when you look at these two populations, the Japanese that you've moved to Kenya and the Kenyans that you have moved to Japan, after the time period of 10 years, you'll clearly see that the Kenyans in Japan will revert back to their status of being poor. And the Japanese who you've brought to Kenya with all the problems that Kenya has in terms of infrastructure, within 10 years, you'll see that they will have gone back to being a first world country. So you can clearly see that the issue is the people, is not their circumstances. So, and when you're talking about people, you're talking about the mindset. So the issue is the mindset. Cultures that are insular tend to succeed more than cultures which are very open. And so in Japan, you won't find them showing their children programming from other countries. In Kenya, you won't find Kenyans showing their children programming made in Kenya. In fact, there's very little programming made in Kenya. Why? Well, the answer is very simple. Kenyans refuse to make any programming. For example, there are so many good artists in Kenya. In fact, I used to have a friend of mine who was a very talented artist. He could do storyboards, he could draw very quickly. So I was like, how come the Kenyan artists, the people who can draw, how come they don't create an organization or a company and produce animation for children and then sell that kind of programming to the news media, you know, to the TV stations? And even YouTube now is a very useful platform that they can showcase their work. How come they don't do that? In other countries, in fact, let me tell you, I used to work with these two guys, two Mzungu guys. They were my workmates. Now, this is what they used to do. We used to work like overnight. So this is what they used to do. They used to write code for a video game that they were trying to produce. And they needed to do like, I don't know how many millions of lines of code in order to produce that video game. And so I spoke with them and they told me that they're doing the night job so that they can work quietly and earn an income while they're working, while they're doing their own thing. So the idea was for them to write that video game and then to sell it to video game publishers. Like that was their whole plan. Now, I sat down and I wondered, how come the people in Kenya who can draw, who can do all these things, who have that natural talent, how come they don't form like a company and produce like a whole series and then sell it to the TV stations, or, you know, upload it on YouTube and they can still make money? But for some reason, that never happens. So why doesn't that happen? Why doesn't the Kenyan artists, I'm using this as an example, the Kenyan artists will not produce their own animations for this very simple reason that they prefer foreign animations. And so you can see it's the mindset. It's not the lack of market. It's not the lack of talent. It's the mindset that whatever is foreign is good and we will not make our own. So you cannot convince them to do a storyboard and then pitch it to TV stations or upload it on YouTube and build up income that way. You cannot convince them. They have the talent, they have the skill, they have the time, they have the opportunity, and now they have the platform. YouTube is a free platform. They don't charge you for uploading anything you want, and they even pay you when people watch your production, but they still won't do it. So the issue is the mind. So how do we deal with this mindset? How do we break down the mindset that says, I will not make anything for myself? I mean, just think about that. The difference between Kenya and Japan is the mindset and nothing else. So that even if you transfer populations from this country to that country, The Japanese will still emerge rich and the Kenyans will still end up being poor. Even if you put gold under the feet of Kenyans, they'll still end up poor because they'll give that gold to the foreigner. They will not manufacture anything for themselves. They don't like anything about themselves. You'll never find Kenyans boasting about a brand they've created. But you'll see them boasting about foreign brands. You'll see Kenyans boasting about Gucci. Look at my Gucci shirt. Very proudly. You'll see Kenyans being very proud to go to KFC. To eat at KFC. Very proud. But they will not develop their own food brands. At all. So the mindset that makes Kenyans want to praise everything that is foreign and to want to associate themselves with everything that is foreign is the very reason why the country is so poor. This is the reason why Kenyans don't make their own cars, because they want to boast that they're driving a German car. They want to boast that they're driving a Japanese car. You get more marks, quote unquote, if you have something foreign rather than if you have anything local. So as long as that is the mindset that predominates the culture, the country will remain poor for a very long time. So I think it's time for our psychologists to get away from their Western training and focus more on how do we break down this mindset that is all about self-rejection and self-hatred, because it has very severe economic implications. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement and together let us kick poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.